We want to take a look now at what is next for Egypt and in turn for the region. Joining us with a look at some of the possible scenarios is Bobby Ghosh. He's Deputy International Editor for Time Magazine, and this is actually the story that you're working on for the next issue of the magazine. Good to have you with us as always. We've heard a little bit about the possible plans and the involvement of the United States. Does the U.S. risk anything by at least appearing to be so involved in this move to force Mubarak out?
Well, the Obama administration has been behind the curve on Egypt for about 10 days now, and it looks like they're trying to get ahead of it. And you're right, it seems it won't go down well in the street if Washington is seen to be pushing the levers here. It's probably a better idea to work with the neighbors, with Saudi Arabia, with Qatar, with other countries in the Arab world, and try to get some sort of a consensus going.
And so as we look at that region, which has been the focal point really since things started erupting in Tunisia not long ago, as you look across, there are a number of demonstrations planned in different countries throughout the region today. What are you looking at most closely?
Well, we're looking particularly at Yemen. I was just there. It's a country that in many ways is similar to Egypt, very, very poor, very, very corrupt. You have essentially a dictator who's been there for 32 years, and the people who want to see him go. There have been protests already leading up to this. Today's Friday, big protests today, both pro and anti-government. It's been peaceful so far, but things are very combustible.
And there is some concern. There are a lot of people here in the U.S. will hear Yemen and think of course, Al-Qaeda in the Middle East, and it is a hotbed of terrorism. So understandably why there's so much focus. As we look at Egypt and what has to happen between now and September, if and when Mubarak steps down, who will be leading this interim government? Is it someone like Mohammed al-Baradei?
Well, his name has come up a lot recently. He's seen as a neutral figure, as independent. He has a Nobel Peace Prize. He has international credibility. He seems like likely to be a transitional figure. He doesn't have a lot of political experience in Egypt, but he could head a transitional government preparing for an election. There's also Ayman Noor, who stood against Mubarak 5 years ago. He was thrown in jail, but he has a lot of credibility because he has stood in opposition to Mubarak. Or General Suleiman, the man appointed vice president by President Mubarak. He's a little too close to the regime to be a realistic candidate in the long term, but again, a transitional figure possibly.
What do you see happening in that transitional period? I mean, it seems unlikely that President Mubarak could hold on until the elections in September.
It's going to be messy, Erica. There's no shortcut to it. For 32 years, this man has kept his opposition down. There are no logical leaders. There are no natural figures. So there's going to be a lot of negotiations among the opposition groups. They're going to have to come up with a new constitution or reform the existing constitution. It's going to be quite complex.
And real quickly, what does this do for the U.S. in terms of diplomacy and relations in the region? Is this going to end up being a bad thing or a good thing?
Well, I think in the short term, it's going to be very difficult because Egypt is so central to the U.S. Middle Eastern policy. But I think in the long term, it's a good thing. I think the United States is always much more comfortable when it's dealing with democratic countries and leaders who have the credibility with their own people.
And we will continue to watch it, and we'll be looking for that article coming up as well. Bobby Ghosh, thanks for coming in this morning.